going to be talking about data and how to properly record the data you collect. Data can come in a variety of ways. The first can be numerical, so physical numbers that you record, like the temperature that day, or it can be more descriptive, like the weather that you are experiencing, the people you are collecting the data with, or the fish that you caught in the river. When collecting data, it's important to be organized. You can do this by planning out in your field notebook or preparing a data sheet with the variables and parameters that you want to measure when you get out into the field. Before you go out in the field, it's important to set up your field log so that you collect the correct parameters and that you're ready to go once you get out there. Some things that you may want to include on your field log could be the date that you are out there and the location. You could also include your arrival time, the time you leave, as well as the weather conditions like the air temperature, the humidity, where the wind is coming from, and the speed. It would be even better to have a pre-printed data sheet that you make that you could also take out into the field, and that way you have all your parameters and variables laid out for collection. So now that you have your notebook and data sheet all ready to go, it's time to head out into the field. Once you get into the field, you're going to be recording your data. And as you record this data, there are many things that are important to do. The first is to make sure that you're legible. So other people besides yourself are going to be reading your data, and it's important to make sure that they can read your handwriting. Because if they can't read your handwriting, then they can't process it and input it into Excel. The second thing is being consistent with your units. So for example, if you're measuring temperature and you're measuring in Celsius, it's important to keep listing and recording your temperatures in Celsius and not switch to Fahrenheit. It's also important that your colleagues do the same. The next thing that you should do is to make sure to be detailed. So write as much detail as you can about everything that you're doing. An example would be the weather. So if I wasn't being detailed, I would just say that it was hot out. But if you want to be detailed, then you're going to say it was sunny with partly cloudy and the temperature was 24 degrees Celsius. The last thing you want to make sure you do is utilize your notes section. So in your data sheet, you should always have a separate section called notes. And those notes are where you're going to put anything that may have happened during the experiment or anything that was out of the ordinary that you want to make sure you remember for when you go to record the data and analyze it. By now, you have prepped your notebook, collected your data, and have returned from the field. Once you get back from the field, it is important to choose a safe place to leave your data. So for example, this can be in a binder, a folder, or drawer, wherever is most convenient for you and others to access. Once you have stored your data in a safe place, it is important to be consistent. So if you choose, for example, to leave it in a binder at a certain location, make sure that your colleagues and other people who are helping you with the project know where the data is placed and that they should also place it in that binder as well. The next thing is you want to make sure that you have multiple copies of your data. So when you get back from the field and you enter it into Excel, which we will show you a little bit later in this video, you want to make sure that you back up your data to multiple places. After you have backed up your data, you want to make sure to communicate to your colleagues and other people helping you on the project where you backed up that data and where they can access it. Again, it is also important to make sure you communicate where you are storing the data and where future colleagues should also store it after they get back from the field. When dissecting or collecting fish, you will be collecting certain structures in order to better understand the fish that you have just caught. When you collect these structures, you will put them in small envelopes such as this one, and you will label them according to what's on the board right here. So when you label the envelope, you want to make sure that the first thing you list is the species. So for example, that could be walleye. The second thing that you want to put on your envelope is the structure that you collected. So an example of this could be an otolith. The third thing you want to list is the date that you caught the fish. The next thing is the location that you caught it at. And the fifth thing being the type of gear that you use. So an example of this would be a gill net. The next thing you want to make sure you put on your envelope is the total length and the fork length labeled in millimeters. The next thing you want to make sure you include is weight, and that is measured in grams. The next thing you want to include is the sex of the fish, that being male or female, And the final thing is the maturity of the fish. So that would be either that it's a mature and adult or it's juvenile. So now that you've collected your data, you want to take the information and input it into Excel. As I mentioned earlier, inputting your data into Excel is one way to back up your information. As you are entering your data into Excel, it is important to be extremely careful because this is the data that you will be using to perform your analysis. To summarize, today we talked about how to collect data, once you've collected that data, how to then manage it, and then enter that data into Excel. Now you have all the skills that you need to head out into the field and get started on your own project.